everyone. Welcome to the special episode of For the Love of Books podcast featuring indie and small press authors with host author Emma Palova. I would like to thank our sponsors, Moravian Sons Distillery and Doc Chavent. Today, we will be chatting about AI and its impact on authors and vice versa as we navigate this evolving landscape with rising anxiety and opportunity. Leading our Leading our discussion is Dr. C. Daniel Miller, known as the Copyright Detective, a copyright consultant and co-owner of Integrated Writer Services, LLC. He's also the author of the award-winning Copyright Clearance for Creatives, now being updated to include a vital new section on AI in its second edition. Dr. Miller speaks and conducts workshops on copyright-related topics. His presentations include copyright basics and copyright in the age of artificial intelligence for authors, independent publishers, and other creative professionals. Joining us on the author panel are authors Gene Davis, speculative fiction author of the Narvan series, Andrew Allen Smith, action thriller author and blogger behind 29,000 Sunsets, and Ingar Rudholm, young adult fantasy author of the Traveling Circus series. We're all West Michigan authors, and we market ourselves under the Michigan Authors umbrella. Authors, can you please introduce yourselves? Jean?
So I am Jean Davis. I write space opera, and then I also do standalone novels and children's books for something fun. So I've been writing for quite a long time, and I hope to see you out on the road somewhere.
Yeah, hope to see you this summer. All right. Andrew's probably driving, so he cannot introduce himself. Ingar, can you continue?
Yeah, I also write children's books, but I also am working on a graphic novel, converting it all into picture book, and I've been doing this since 2010. But uh, you know, publishing. But before that, I'd write short stories in high school and college.
So you've been writing your entire life, right?
Exactly,
That
exactly.
is awesome. Andrew, are you back with us?
I have arrived.
Yay!
Okay, yay, just in time for you to introduce yourself to us.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Smith. I write consistently and have been writing since I was very young, and have currently 16 books published, with way too many about to come out, as long as I can get them out in a hurry. Uh, I am also executive director of a consulting firm focused on technology and technologies across the world, and work in compliance, and have multiple copyrights in my name in different technologies.
And I'm Emma Palova. I've been writing forever. And currently, I am working on releasing my sequel to The Lost Town. I write mainly historical fiction, and I have written a Greenwich Meridian memoir about our family immigration saga from former communist Czechoslovakia to the US. And now, Dan, can you give us your latest news about your presentation, Copyright in the Age of Artificial Intelligence?
Okay, well, thanks for the opportunity to participate. I'm looking forward to this discussion. They always get rather spirited. Um, so, first of all, I have to make some disclaimers. I am not an attorney. If you're looking for legal advice, go find an attorney. That's what I do. And I have to do that from time to time. I also do not create AI platforms. So, I am just a messenger here today. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm not bulletproof. But I am a copyright clearance specialist, and I frequently use AI. I had used AI probably 10 times before 9 a.m. this morning. So I used to Google everything, and now I AI everything. I'm not sure what the verb is for AI everything, but I've been making presentations on copyright basics since 2010, and I started making presentations on copyright and AI at the request of an independent publishing group in Colorado that I'm a life member of. So it caused me to stop using AI and start thinking about what the impact is with copyright. So I've made 3 presentations so far. Each one of them changed drastically because of all the changes that are taking place in AI. New reports coming out of the U.S. Copyright Office, new court decisions, new decisions by the U.S. Copyright Office. So every time I do a presentation, it changes. And I did one on April the 8th to the Midwest Independent Publishers Association. And I already had copyright registration queued up for the presentation. And they made a recording of it. And on April the 9th, I submitted a recording of the presentation. And my copyright registration was issued within about 3 hours. Now, I've been working on it since February. So it is copyrighted. Now, it ended up being a case study of copyrightability of works that include AI generated and AI assisted content. So I've learned a lot in the process. Just getting the copyright really informed me about the process itself. So I hope that's enough background for me. I'm a guy who goes out and gets permission. I've cleared uh, well over 2,000 individual items over the last years, probably more than that. I had one author, I cleared well over 600 individual items in his memoirs. It's a 900-page memoir. He was a football player. This was his glory days, and that was the name of the title of his book. Uh, but anyway, I think it's probably the way I have notes. If I have more than 3 items, I have to write them down. So, Gene, I was looking at your question first, and I think that's a good place to start. I have some really clever answers for you. So let me hear if you're going to ask me the same question that Emma sent me, or are you going to spring a new one on me?
Nope, that's the one I'm going for.
Tell everybody else what it is. They can't see it on my screen.
For those of us who have seen that our work has been used to train AI, so 2 of my books were listed as being used to train AI, and we were not compensated for this work being taken from us. So I know there's like a form we can fill out to just kind of complain about it, and that there is a class action sort of lawsuit in process possibly, but is there anything else we can do about it?
So when I saw your question, I thought, well, that's a good question to run by AI. I run everything by AI anymore. What's a recipe for potato soup? It doesn't matter. I just use my Perplexity Pro and they'll give me an answer. And I love the answer I got. It said, you should get into politics, run for Congress, get elected, pass new laws, and then make sure the U.S. Copyright Office enforces them. And I think that's a good go-to long-term plan. I also have some suggestions for the short term, and that be a little more applicable. So the audience can't see you nodding yes, but I can see you nodding yes in the Zoom, and I appreciate the
Yeah.
feedback. I like doing it this way. Uh, so the first thing is, and the first 2 suggestions you can do as soon as this podcast is over. That's how immediate this is. So the first thing is maximize the legal leverage that you have with copyright registration. And I'm going to give you some details for that. So you need to apply for a copyright registration for everything that you want protected. Ideally, you've done that within 90 days of publication. There is a larger window, but you don't get all the damages if you win a lawsuit. And that goes out to 5 years. And after 5 years, I think you're just out of luck. But what happens if you file with if you register it before an infringement happens or within 90 days of publication, you can get statutory damages and your attorney's fees reimbursed. So the what would happen with AI infringing your stuff? They know they're infringing. It's not accidental. So the court could award up to $150,000 per copyright work they infringe. So, that's a pretty big cha-ching, cha-ching. And they have to pay your attorney's fees on top of that. So make sure that you've got everything copyrighted and do the registration. And with my presentation that I just got copyrighted, um, it gives me a real advantage now because it's out, it's public, it's on a YouTube channel. You can go on YouTube and go to The Copyright Detective, and you can watch this whole presentation. It runs an hour and 1 minute, and a lot of what I'll talk about answering your questions, you're going to see on those slides. But the fact that I have the certificate is if somebody copies that presentation, I can sue them immediately and watch out for the statutory damages. Here comes a check for $150,000 and my attorney's fees will be paid. So that's the first thing you can do is protect
Okay.
yourself. And the second thing is join the Authors Guild. The Authors Guild, I've been praising them for a long time. They're the group that took Google to task when Amazon scanned millions of copies of other people's books without getting permission or anything else for that. And the Authors Guild took it all the way to the Supreme Court. In this case, the Supreme Court ruled against the Authors Guild because they said that uh, the use of this database that was created that made it scannable was a transformative work, and therefore it was fair use. Now, we already have 39 court cases in the U.S. queued up, and a lot of those folks are pleading fair use for their use of other people's stuff like yours. So it's working its way through the courts, and Authors Guild is the one that has sued OpenAI and Microsoft, and it's been in the courts since 2023, I believe, working its way through the system. And there's many levels of courts and appeals and everything else. That one eventually, I predict, is going to be the one in the Supreme Court that's going to decide whether this stuff is fair use or not. And then the U.S. Copyright Office is also writing a new major document on the liability of AI platforms using other people's stuff for their training models. So that's also queued up as well. And the third thing I've got, let's see my notes here, is watch. Yeah, it's watch for this new document. It was due out first quarter, and it should be out hopefully by the end of the year. It's called Copyright and Artificial Intelligence Part 3: Training AI Models. And my prediction is when that comes out, then that'll open the floodgates of lawsuits against AI platforms for that. And hopefully we'll know what the new rules. And I'm guessing that the U.S. Copyright Office is going to recommend that Congress enact new legislation, just like it did on the replications of people's features and their voices and everything else. They've recommended new legislation for that. So that was a long answer to a short question, but I hope you gleaned something useful out of all that, Gene.
I did take notes. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah, that was great. Ingar had a set of questions. Ingar, are you with us?
Yeah. Yep. I had it pulled up here.
I've got them pulled up, so I'm ready for you.
Oh, okay. So let's see. Um, well, I belong to a couple different writing groups, and they talked about AI and using AI to write their book for them. And I noticed it's like Amazon is actually cracking down on that, which is good. Um, um, how does that work? Does that like basically so publishers can just knock you off, or does that usually go through KDP like Amazon? I'm not sure how that works, but
Okay, so you've gotten to the heart of the matter that took me about 5 months before I finally got the aha moment where I understood this puppy. And I'm hearing this and I'm reading this. I've read hundreds of pages, and that's part of the problem. I've read hundreds of pages that have come out of the U.S. Copyright Office about all this, the copyrightability and disclosure and all of that. I have figured out a simple way to explain it. Now, unfortunately, the audience can't see a diagram that I've already filed a copyright for, but essentially there's two kinds of artificial intelligence that impacts all of this. The first part is AI generated content. And that starts with someone typing in what's called a prompt. It's just like you asking Google a question. So you type in a prompt with as many details as you can muster, and it spits out a result. So it's the content is actually being generated by AI, and the U.S. Copyright Office has taken a hard position that content created exclusively by AI, with the only human input being prompts, that is not copyrightable. And there's a court case working its way through now. Allen is working its way through lawsuits, and he claims that he used over 600 prompts in creating the image that he filed copyright registration for. So my guess is, they'll lose all the cases until it hits the Supreme Court, and then they'll decide. But so that's one end of the extreme. And Amazon, their policy is you must disclose if you use AI generated content. Now, what if you tweak it? So what if they spit out a narrative for you and you go in and you edit it and you edit it and you edit it and you edit it and you edit it? How much editing actually is required to make it copyrightable? And that's the big unknown right now. But starting with AI generated, you're going to have a harder time of copywriting anything for that. Now, the other end of the extreme is you write something up, and I do this all the time. So I write up a narrative, and I'll plug it into Perplexity Pro, which is my preferred AI platform, and I'll ask it to tweak it in a certain way. Like I was working on my LinkedIn profile, so I'll put in something there, and I ask it to revise this narrative to make it more compatible with LinkedIn audiences. And I look at the result of that, and it does wordsmithing and all these kinds of things. And I can either choose to accept that or not accept that. Now, if I'm using it on something like LinkedIn or on a web page, and I do that for our web pages and all that, you're not worried about copyright there. So it doesn't matter whether, how you came up with it. But if I wanted to copyright something that I use that procedure, I have much better odds of getting it copyrighted if it starts with me inputting something into AI and AI reacts to it. And that's called AI assisted content. And you have to disclose that when you're filing a copyright registration with the Copyright Office. You have to disclose both AI generated and AI assisted. And right now it's clunky. It's an awkward system. And I literally spent hours with the examiner. It surprised me. I started getting emails, and then I had a phone call, then I had a Zoom. And my recollection is I'm actually seeing the gentleman's screen as he's typing in the language that shows up on my certificate. So I actually saw him keyboarding my approval and didn't realize it at the time for that. And then once I published it, it made it live. So that's kind of a long and short answer to you. But did that cover what you're asking?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Okay. You want to look at some of these others? Oh, you ask if AI copies your work, who can you sue? So yeah, I'd gotten into that. I think I got into that with Gene. The best thing is to protect yourself and then watch what else happens. Uh, you had a question about using AI images. That goes back into this first thing I was describing. Images are AI generated. You're only using prompts. And Alan used over 600 prompts for his image, and the Copyright Office said that's not copyrightable. Can you use it? Sure. I can take your cover and also you put it on my book if I want to because it's not copyright protected. So that's the downside is that there's no protection if AI created it. If it can't be copyrighted, no, you can't copyright it. Nobody else can either. Part of the problem is, and we kind of alluded to this, AI makes a lot of mistakes. I'll have to run multiple images before I get one. I did a certificate for my copyright registration, and I put an image up, and every time I did it, it would have a misspelled word, or it wouldn't have all the words that I'd put in there. It wouldn't have the correct title of the presentation. I finally gave up after 5 tries, and I used the closest thing to what I wanted. I'll get images, and it might have 6 fingers. There's an image from the Copyright Office, and a cat has a human arm and hand. So that stuff is still happening. Uh, uh, so to kind of get into a question that Andrew asked me, is it there yet? It ain't there yet, but it's getting a lot closer. And just in the last couple of weeks, ChatGPT vastly improved the images that they're creating. So before they look kind of cartoony, And I've done some that are looking pretty doggone. I can't tell that it's not a photograph with some of the stuff that Chat GPT has come up with. So, did you have any other questions for him? I mean, I guess it's Andrew. Yeah, Andrew's got his
Andrew?
hand up.
I've got an easy question for you. With the number of programs that writers use right now to assist them, there's everything from Grammarly on down. Are those declarable as AI? Even if you're using spell check and thesaurus now, the Microsoft Copilot and dozens of other side programs are trying to help you along. Do we almost have to declare that AI was there all the time now, or can we say, that wasn't that big of a deal?
Your last few words, that's not that big of a deal, is the key. Again, we're talking about AI assistance. So I'm trying to reinforce these terms that I've gotten. So those kinds of things are AI assisted. It's starting with the human and they're tweaking what the human has done or what they're interacting with it. Now, there's a term, I don't think I've ever said this. I have a hard time with English, so speaking Latin is difficult for me. But I think they call it de minimis. So that's the language coming out of the U.S. Copyright Office. And what that means is a trivial amount. So when you're filing a copyright registration with the U.S. Copyright Office, you do not have to declare de minimis uses of AI. If you use spell checker, Grammarly, and all that kind of stuff, you don't have to claim it. Now, I tried to find out, okay, well, how much is too much? And
Right.
so the rule is if what AI created will stand alone and could be copyrightable, then that's too much. So if you keep that in mind, if what AI created could be copyrighted, if it was just that was submitted, then you have a problem. So you have to look at how much is too much. And that's the gray area that still makes this challenging. Now, hopefully, the U.S. Copyright Office they're tweaking the application process. It's clunky. If you look, I don't know if you've looked. Oh, I think you have, Andrew. You said you'd filed a lot of stuff. It looks like it's right out of Pac-Man. I mean, the graphics that are in there, it's horrible. The assistants you go, they refer you to 100-page documents, 200-page documents to try to figure out how to do this thing. So they're revising all that. I sat in on a webinar, and they're going to reduce it from like 28 different pages to 14 pages. You can submit documents or like videos larger than 500 meg. I mean, they're really overhauling it. They're going to have accessible help sessions and definitions and all kinds of things. And I come to find out the person that reviewed my application for copyright is one of 3 subject matter experts that's assisting in that whole process. So how I drew him out of the lottery is beyond me, but I got some good advice. And basically, I was a bit intimidated, to be honest, because he's asking me all these questions, and we're on the phone. And later I realized he's trying to figure out what I did because I didn't have the language to explain it to him. So hopefully now the application process will give us the kind of language. And all of these hours of explanation and emails and everything else was reduced to 10 words in one category, the category of things that I cannot claim, and 8 words on the things that I can claim. So it took hours and hours and hours to come up with 18 words that's actually on the certificate. Interesting process.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Very good.
So
Did I?
Dan, what do you feel
Yeah.
are the biggest misconceptions authors have about copyright and AI generated content? Where do we kind of crash?
Well, part of it is just first of all, copyright is a mystery to 90% of the people out there creating
Right.
stuff. They
Right.
don't understand the copy. So what I ended up after I did the first presentation, the feedback I got is you need to go back and put in some copyright basics into these presentations because people don't have a context of what you're talking about. So yeah, if I'm going to talk about the impact of AI and copyright, you have to understand copyright base. So that's what I do is I give the overviews like what are your rights if you have copyright. That's why I started with my answer back to Gene is you need to register that so that those rights, you can enforce those rights that you actually have. Anything is copyrightable as soon as you create it in a tangible form. You put it in a Word doc, it's copyrighted, but you can't enforce it until you actually submit it and you actually get a certificate of registration back for it. So that's the first part is understanding the concept of copyright. It's laws that give you exclusive rights. It gives you a monopoly to that stuff. So Jean has a copyright on her stuff, and an AI platform has no legal right to go out and use her stuff. I mean, that's just the way the law reads. Now, the problem that Jean's going to have if somebody uses her materials is finding where it was used.
Oh,
Yeah, how
yeah.
do you detect that that's Gene's story that's out there? Because what AI does,
Right.
it chops all this content up into pieces, and it looks for patterns and all these kind of things. So there's and keep in mind that AI platforms have scanned every website that exists in the world, and up until recently, some of it was like 2 years old. Well, now they're caught up. I was watching for a part two out of the U.S. Copyright Office. It came out one day, and the next day, Perplexity Pro had a synopsis of the major points in this 200-page document. So overnight, it had gone through the whole process of chopping that thing up and understanding it. And I've looked at what it said, I've read the whole document, and it was right on target. So it's getting a lot more responsive. To go back to what Andrew was saying, it's getting better. It's not there. It still gives you six fingers and toes, but that's getting. But they're looking better than what they did before, so they're more represented. So understand what copyright is before you have to figure out how to input the AI. Again, the simple part is to understand that if you're starting from something that's AI generated, that all you do is put in prompts, that's probably not going to be copyrightable. Now, there's one exception that I can point out. If you start with your stuff and you tweak it, you have a much greater chance of it being accepted for copyright registration. So in between is all shades of gray. And that's where it's still muddy
Mhm.
out there. So I started writing, I'm going to be writing a lot more blogs. I wrote 4 blogs just on the submission process for getting a copyright registration because so many pieces. There's a lot of pieces and moving parts. And I guess that's the biggest thing is AI is a moving target. Whatever I've said in this podcast today, 5 minutes when we get off the podcast may be changed. It may be manipulated. Uh, there was something in the news today. I'm going to throw it back out to the other people here on this podcast. What was the news today that came out of the Oval Office about AI? Did anybody hear that other than me?
Nope, I didn't hear
No,
anything.
Been at work.
no. Working.
Yeah.
Good. I had something all queued up to say about it, so I'll just go ahead and say about it. It's talking about the federal government getting involved in artificial intelligence in K-12 classrooms. Well, that might sound scary, but I have to say that I have to do my math here. I'm really an old guy. In 1972, I got my first teaching job in the rural part of Virginia. I'm from Tennessee originally. And the project that I got my job with was funded by the U.S. Copyright Office, and it was a grant dealing with career education. Well, the federal government has funded ideas forever. They have something they want to promote, and the way they do that is they give out grants and all these kind of things, and school districts either
Mhm.
choose to go for a grant or they don't. So if AI in the classroom gets funded, school systems are going to take advantage of that, and I'm going to have lots of opportunities to teach a lot of teachers about artificial intelligence and copyright. So that's the good news. Now, if the federal government wants to control the curriculum, I have an issue. So I've been an educator all my life, and I have enough trouble figuring it out myself, let alone have people watching over my shoulder and looking at my computer screen as I try to figure out tomorrow's lesson plan.
So true.
So, are there any new technologies or tools that help authors track unauthorized use of their work by AI systems? Like, can we track it? Where they exactly used it
Uh,
and in what?
I don't have a good answer for that. This afternoon, I have Google Alerts. We have a trademark. And you see it right above my head there on a slide. The audience can't see it, but it says the copyright detective with an R with a circle around it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So we have a federal trademark, federally registered trademark, which I just had to renew. So we've had it for 9 years or more for that. And I have that on AI alerts. And I got an alert that somebody did a YouTube video and they used the words of the copyright detective. So I already been to YouTube and said, hey, I had to show them a copy of the registration paperwork and all this. They came back and said, well, we don't deal with squabbles of trademark between trademark holders and YouTube providers. So, and there's no email address uh, on this. So part of it is doing the due diligence, and I don't have a good answer for that. Is how you can identify it. Uh, AI is not supposed to make a direct quote. However, I did a search. I can't remember. I was looking for apple cider in Vermont or something like that. So, I said I use it for everything. I don't Google it. I AI it anymore. So I asked Perplexity about finding me apple cider stores in Vermont. I want to go there next year. And it printed out all these different places and all that. And then it had photographs. And in the initial slide set that I'd submitted, the examiner said, that looks just like a photograph. And that bugged me for days after that. So I went online. I finally figured out Perplexity had given me an output where they actually took a photograph off of the website. And I didn't recognize the fact that it was slightly outside of the response, but it was still on the screen that I saw. I had that slide actually on my presentation and took it out because I would be guilty of copyright infringement if I'd have left that in my slide presentation. So uh, it's pervasive. It's just everywhere, and you have to really be careful. Uh, they should not be directly copying what you've got. But Gene, they can tell it, write me a new fiction using your style. Okay, that's where it gets really muddy. Now, you could do that and go back and use the style of an author that's in the public domain, and that would be fair game because that style's in the public domain.
Right.
But Gene, you look too young to be in the public domain
I
yet.
am not in the public domain yet.
I think that's 70. Is it public domain? It has to be like 75 years or something, right?
It's the life of the author
75, yeah.
plus 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
if you're a corporation, it could be up to 125 years. Now, that's the rule since I don't remember when it is. Copyright law has changed 5 times. So when an author sends me a work, first thing I have to do is figure out was this ever under copyright, and did the copyright lapse? Is it in the public domain? So that's a big kettle of worms in and of itself. So, and don't even get me started on music.
Oh,
My
yeah,
beard
that's.
was black before I started doing music clearances,
Oh, yeah.
and my partners here can see that it's almost totally white now. So it gives me a headache trying to clear music rights because there's multiple owners for that. If you're wanting to use song lyrics, I'll just give you a heads up. Uh, could be multiple entities that you have to get right from. Freddie Mercury. Uh, when I looked at that, there were 5 of the writers that had rights to it, and there were 2 publishing companies. When Freddie passed on, he gave the rights to 5 other people. Now you had his 5 plus the 4 plus 2, so that's 11 people that own percentages of the rights for the song lyrics for the songs that he had.
That is
So
unbelievable.
I try to talk people out of using song lyrics.
Okay, one
It's
last question. We're running out of time. Does current copyright law protect an author's original work if it's used to train an AI model? As the copyright stands right now, it doesn't protect us.
Well, copyright law protects your rights. The problem is how do you enforce those rights?
The enforcement.
That's
Okay, so
that's the
that's
problem.
back to, okay, we're
Yeah,
back to square one. Okay. All
yeah.
right, final thoughts or final questions? We have 1 more minute.
Well, let me say this is the age of artificial intelligence. There was a Stone Age, there was a Bronze Age, there's all kinds of ages. This is the age of AI, Now we're just at the beginning of that age. It's like watching Orville and Wilbur, fly down at Kitty Hawk, and then we have landings on the moon. So we're somewhere slightly beyond Kitty Hawk, but I'm not sure how far along the AI age that we're in.
But
We're in it though.
really, sorry that I interrupted. I'm just trying to get it in. We shouldn't be afraid of progress, right? This
No,
should
no,
be
I
progress for us.
love change. This is change. I love it.
I mean, it should be beneficial, right? Like
Yes.
instead of riding a horse, we went down to automobiles, right? Is
Yeah.
it going to
Yeah.
work like that for us?
Yep. And now we're in electric vehicles. So AI is a tool. So a tool can be used for good or it can be used for harm. And you have to watch it. So there are ethical situations, moral
Right.
situations